amazing.
It is.
Because that was during COVID and nobody could come. Greg couldn't get in.
Good as a pastor. Yeah. Well, good evening. It's so nice to be with you. Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. You can catch us on KXEX 1550 AM, Saturdays at 4, Sundays at 6. We talk politics, education, religion, technology, sports, values, healthy communities, all kinds of good things. You can also catch Good News with Larry Powell, nothing but good news stories, Monday through Friday at 10 and at 4. And we're also on Spotify, so you can catch us when you want to catch us. So we have a good time with that. We've got a couple of special guests we'll be talking to in just a couple of minutes, but you know, it's wild in California. Fortunately, it looks like some of the mask requirements are now going to be removed. But I keep telling people, you know, I never wore a mask for me. I wore it for everybody else, just to tell them I care about you. And so I'm not into the, you know, you got to wear a mask or you shouldn't wear a mask or any of that side. I simply chose, for me, I was going to wear a mask because I thought it would be a message to other people around me that I care about you, and that's why I'm wearing it. So you do what you want to do. California now, for anybody who is not who is vaccinated, doesn't have to wear a mask except in certain circumstances. I'm still waiting for our kids to get unmasked. My grandkids are in school, and so a lot of things happening there. Well, enough about masks right now. And COVID, you know, I've said this before, but I thought I'd tell you again. As soon as we run out of Greek letters, we run out of the variants. So, you know, that's kind of where we're going. Anyway, you're with us today, and we're excited about this because we've got two really good friends of mine and guests that I think you're going to really enjoy. And one of them is Cathy Jean Ferguson, and she is an Olympic champion. She also was head of Girl Scouts here in Central California. We're going to be talking with her and her husband, Greg Panten. And I'll tell you, he is an interesting guy. He's Greg, what do? You are a worship leader at Trinity,
right?
And you also are a vocal coach,
right? And teach voice.
Yeah, and I like to let people know that a little hint. I got a few voice lessons from him for singing, and I still do may, me, my, mo, moo, and warm that voice up and get ready. So, Greg, I really appreciate you. You helped me out a lot with some things that I was doing. Well, Cathy, how neat it is to see you. Before we talk about all of the interesting things that you two do, let's go back in history a little bit. Just where did you grow up? You know, what was life like for you as a young child growing up, and then eventually leading to this incredible Olympic experience that has been a part of you now since 1964?
Yes,
yeah.
1964.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, actually, I was a Valley child. Raised in Stockton.
Stockton.
And for those of you who know Hammer Lane, that was my uncle.
Okay.
And then I moved to Burbank and was raised in Burbank. Swam at the Burbank YMCA, actually learned to swim there, and then started with the little local swim team there with the YMCA. So grew up through that. And then 1960, the Olympics were on television, and I was watching them, and my dad said, would you like to try to be on an Olympic team? And of course I said yes.
Wow.
And not understanding what that would mean.
And the amount of energy, effort, time, all the commitment it would take.
Well, and being so shy, I was really shy.
Wow.
And I thought, oh, well, that won't be any problem because your head's in the water and you don't have to talk to anybody. But it was a real experience changing friends, and especially when you're young. And so my dad researched, found the best coach in the world, actually, Peter Dalen from USC, and traditionally a man's coach, but he was great. And I went down to the Los Angeles Athletic Club, was interviewed by him, and long story short, he said, you can be on the B team, and I thought should be on the A team.
Of course.
But I started on the B team, and about 2 weeks later was moved to the A team.
Oh, I love it.
And from then on, was coached by Peter. So my day looked like go to bed at night, get up at 6:30 in the morning, do pulley weights in the garage that my dad had built for me, eat breakfast. It's the only meal we all had together. Went to school, came home from school, ate an early dinner, got on a bus, rode it down to Los Angeles. My dad worked downtown LA, and that's where the athletic club was.
Right.
And so, and still is.
World famous LA Athletic Club.
And so spent my life at the LA Athletic Club, basically. And then in the summertime trained at the LA Coliseum, which was the site of the 1932 Olympic Games.
Right.
So I was a very busy kid, and what was very interesting is my coach was a graduate of Harvard and Swarthmore. Very bright man, spoke about 6 languages. I wanted to be just like him. I just admired his intelligence.
Sure.
And he had asked me, he said, Cathy, what are your goals? And I said, I want to be an Olympic champion. And I often wonder how many people sat across from his desk and said that, but he never gave me any indication like, oh, yeah, right.
Oh, I love it.
No, it was, okay, and why? And I said, and I can remember it as clear as a bell, I want people to see me. And it was a little deeper than, hi, how are you, or be famous.
Sure.
I wanted them to see me.
Yeah, I love it.
And so he goes, okay, and we'll start the plan. And we set out a plan and the stepping stones to the plan. So he gave me life lessons that I've carried with me throughout my whole career. He was not my parent. He was my coach.
Yeah.
And yet I loved him dearly and thought that because he believed in me, I believed in me.
Right.
And
we've all had that. And I know we're going to talk about some other things too, but you do a lot of work with young ladies to help them believe in themselves, so it looks like some of that started with what Peter did.
Absolutely. He was a great teacher, and he always had a purpose in what we did. When we would travel to different places, he would take us and show us things.
Wow.
Even when he was one of the coaches to the European trip that I took, he would say, well, we're going to the Louvre this morning.
Wow.
You're going to have to see this, and you're going to need to remember this, and you're going to have to, and it was important educationally for me to understand that he explained to me that education was for a lifetime, that swimming was only a second in your life, and that it would go by quickly, but no one could ever take your education away.
Yeah.
And before that time, school was it was okay.
Right.
But he said,
kind of like all of us at sophomores.
Well, and he said, C's aren't acceptable if you're going to swim on my team.
Wow.
A's, B's at the bottom of the list. And of course, my dad was cheering on that. So he knew he was in the right place.
Yeah.
But I stayed with Peter my whole entire career then from that point on. But I got the good basics at the YMCA. And at that time, it was Young Men's Christian Association.
Right.
And even though I wasn't a man, I felt very comfortable at the YMCA and went on to work with the YMCA. My very first job teaching swimming, making $1.56 an hour.
Wow.
And that was after the Olympic Games.
Yeah.
So my fame lasted not very long. and reality of having to make a living for myself.
Sure.
But I always knew I wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting. So this was 1964 Olympics, and that was in Tokyo. What was it like just in the preparations to go to Tokyo? All the preparation for swimming I get and stuff, but did your parents get to go with you? What was it? Did you live in the Olympic Village? What was that like?
Oh, when I sit and think about it, that's what I think about first is the Olympic Village. And it saddens me that COVID hit and those athletes did not have an opportunity to really be among the other athletes of the world. We had a wonderful time in the Olympic Village, and meeting people that didn't speak my language, you would think would be very difficult, but in the Olympic Village, it's not difficult at all.
Interesting.
And everybody there has earned the right to be there. They've worked hard. It doesn't matter under what circumstances they have worked.
Sure.
I became friends with people all over the world, and especially the Japanese people were unbelievable to me. I would come back and after swim practice, and my bed was filled with gifts from the Japanese people that I needed 3 suitcases by the time I finished. They were just so gracious and wonderful people. And that wasn't so far after World War II.
No, exactly.
My dad fought in World War II in the Navy. And I wish I had the foresight to say, what was it like going back to Japan? Because yes, my parents were able to go. They had to fiddle their way to figure out how they were going to do it. And they were not rich people.
Yeah.
They sacrificed a great deal for me to swim.
Wow.
And so they went into Tokyo, and my dad loved it. And he loved the people, and he loved the whole experience of it. Same with my mom, and it was wonderful to be able to have them there. They weren't going to be able to go, and the YMCA put together some funding to send them. So it was a very nice experience for me. But the village was something else. I mean, you're there with the greatest athletes in the world.
Yeah, I love it.
And
I want to talk more about that. We're going to take a quick break here, folks. You're listening to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. And what a great conversation about the Olympics going on right now. And we've got a former Olympic champion with us, Cathy Ferguson. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Powell to the People. Write it down.
Facebook folks, thank you so much for being with us. You can tune in anytime and catch us. But what a great day we have today. And with the Olympics going on, it's kind of neat to be able to talk to an Olympic champion. We're going to be right back.
No matter what comes, no matter what goes, if you're on a high, if you're in a low, if you're getting sick.
The best talk in town.
Hey, welcome back to our second segment of Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. And Cathy, talking about civility, it seems the Olympics were a different thing back when you did it, because people did get along really well. And I'm sure the Olympic athletes now get along, but the politics of each country just seems to interfere with some really good things that happen with the folks. And you were talking about the Olympic Village experience and COVID knocking kids out of a chance to get to know. I know your silver medalist was from France, and you competed with 6 world record holders to win that championship. That's pretty remarkable. How did that feel?
Well, I'll tell you, that competition was pretty tough, and it's going to be really tough. In those days, there were only 8 events for women to compete in.
Wow.
The 200 backstroke, which was my best event, was not in the Olympic program. And so I
didn't
had
realize
to sprint.
that. Yeah.
I had to sprint, which I was a come from behind her person.
Okay.
So there was a lot of work that had to be done on that. But the village part and the athlete part was critical to me understanding the world a lot better. And I really feel that if athletes ran the countries today, we wouldn't have the problems that we have today. But there was a Cold War, Larry, if you remember.
That's right.
And it was the Russians that everybody was talking about.
Yeah. Khrushchev with his shoe on the table.
And everybody kind of, you know, we didn't have television like we had. And I wondered what these Russians look like. And I got off the airplane and the Russians flew in right with us on the other side of the big barrier. And we weren't to go over there. And 2 of us looked and lo and behold, we go, let's go. And we jumped the barrier and ran over. And I saw the Russians coming down off the plane. And I thought, they're just like me.
Oh, I love it.
And we hugged each other. Didn't know each other at all. And people ask, well, how does that function when you're with them? Well, when you're in the locker room, you're just chatting up a storm because there's nobody in there that's listening to them.
Oh, I love it.
When you walk out on the deck, it's a whole different
story.
Ballpark.
Wow, that's some insight. That's pretty amazing. Well, we're going to get back to the Olympics here. Greg, you know, I'm going to do a quick segment here. You're a vocal coach. You've performed. You've done a lot of different things like that. Tell me a little bit about your early history and what got you into music, because music is so valuable to kids. You know, sports, music, those kinds of things. And when I was a principal, I wanted to make sure every kid was involved in something like that.
Well, growing up in Buffalo, New York, and you always say Buffalo softly. You don't want to advertise that.
I love it. Although now with Josh Allen, you can sing it from the rafters.
Now look, he's a fireball guy.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
You know, Buffalo can claim him all they want.
And his girlfriend is a daughter of Chris Williams, who worked for me in Central Unified.
Well, there you go. Hey,
so we're all connected.
It is a small world.
It is.
Well, I went to school in Cleveland Hill High School, and they had the elementary, the middle, and the senior. One building right next to another.
Okay.
And in 4th grade, I decided that I really was going to be a singer, and I was going to join the choir.
I love it.
And they said, you are terrible.
You're kidding.
You don't belong here. You can't do this. I said, well, I just don't believe that. And then I went and sat down.
Yeah.
I could sing higher, I could sing lower, I had the right pitch, I had rhythm, I had all of those things. Well, went home, told my parents, and the next day we had an accordion. What's that? How many people know what an accordion is anymore? Anyhow, that's how I learned music on accordion.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So not piano.
No, that came later, but we started with an accordion because it was very popular with Lawrence Welk.
Absolutely.
And Myron Florence. So.
Yes.
All right, so fast forward, I decide I still want to be in choir. Well, I don't have to. I'm in 4th grade. I don't have to sit in this building. I can go right next door and see what they have.
Oh, I love it.
And I went next door, and they said, oh, no, the choir room is in the senior building. Oh, okay. On my way.
To the senior building.
To the senior building. Now, I'm the same size now that I was in 5th grade. I was a giant in 5th grade, and I'm, average now.
I hear you.
But I knocked on the door, walked in. I said, choir? Oh, yeah, come on in. Are you new? Yeah, I am. And they pointed me to the bass section, and I went and sat down.
Yeah.
Well, after the choir was over, the teacher said, can I talk to you a minute? Yeah, sure. So I came up, and she said, are you new? Yeah, I am.
You're new to the choir.
Okay. And 3 days later, they had figured out that I was in 4th grade and I had wandered into the senior high choir.
I love it.
And then she said, well, why do you want to be here? I said, I have a great voice. I just knew it. And so we did a couple of things afterwards. And she said, let me hear you sing. So I sang a song, and I think it was probably God Bless America or something like that.
Yeah.
Got all done. And she turned around and said, well, you had one good note.
One good note.
Right. I went through the floor, and I'm, what do you mean one good note?
Yeah.
She says, well, some people don't have any, and they'll never be a singer.
Wow.
You can build off of one note. Do you want to take lessons with me? I said, sure. Not knowing what that meant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be back here after class at 2 o'clock and we'll start. Well, I did that with her for 6 years.
6 years?
Yeah. And at the end of my high school career, we'll call it high school career, I had a repertoire of at least 10 operatic arias.
Wow.
German, French, Italian.
Yeah.
And I had coaching in those languages from the teachers that taught that in the school.
Wow.
So I had a gigantic jump on people.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And this woman could accompany like fire. She went to Boston U. She was highly trained, won the Metropolitan Regional Finals.
Wow.
And learned a great deal from that person.
I guess.
And I carried that on, but I have worked with some great people later in life.
Amazing.
And I got to work with you.
Yeah. Listen, I learned a lot from you, and it was really fun. And you were much more patient with me than she was with you on one note. You gave me credit for 2 or more.
No, you sing very well.
Well, yeah. The confidence I gained just from having spent some time with you was really interesting, because I've always had the chance to sing, and I've loved it. I've written about 80 songs now and done a lot of stuff like that. But, you know, I was a player as opposed to a musician, so I could play the piano and stuff, but it was all self-taught. Guitar I self-taught and all that stuff. But once I got with you and learned that there was actually a route to improve your voice, because I could get away with the stuff because I did a lot of parodies, and as an educator, you're using music all the time. So in 1814 took a little trip, with the Colonel Jackson down the mighty Mississippi. So my history lessons often included songs from the era and things like that. But after being with you for some time, it was interesting. I learned you actually practice developing your voice, strengthening your voice, strengthening your diaphragm, all of those kinds of things that really for some reason didn't set in till I had spent some time with you, and so it was really neat. Really neat. And
yeah, it's hour after hour after hour after hour. Work your diction, work your vowels, work your consonants.
And you guys remember Orson Welles?
Oh, sure.
I was watching him on television once. Here's another place I learned something. He had an ending for every word that he said. And so I learned, and part of the reason radio works so well for me is that every word I say has an ending. And you get a diction level that is unlike most people, because most people slur their words. They just kind of throw them together. But I've told my grandkids and my daughter, I said, every word has an ending ever since I saw Orson Welles on Merv Griffin's show. And he talked about that. And we're going to have an ending for every word. You're going to use the English language appropriately. And so it was a lot of fun. And in singing, that comes across powerfully as well. And when I speak, I do a lot of public talking and, stuff like that. So people really enjoy that, and the word captures them. So I learned a lot from you. It was really fun, to tie in Orson Welles and Panten and all the things that happened with that, and what you taught me. So it was really good. This is a faith-based program. We've got 1 minute in this segment. Tell me a little bit about what you do at church there at Trinity Lutheran.
I'm the director of traditional music at Trinity Lutheran. That's 3973 North Cedar, across from Granite Park, and me and Ed's.
Yes, exactly.
I do the choir, I do the bells, I help pick out the hymns for the week, things like that, run the soundboard.
So something about the chancellery or...
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I help out there, and I am an assisting minister as well. So
yeah. I love it.
Prayers.
I love it. Well, and music, if we're going to learn something in school, if you can do rhythm and music, you're going to keep it for the long run, and it just locks in. Folks, you're listening to some really good things with Greg Panten and with Cathy Ferguson. And we're going to be right back in just a minute. But this is Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Powell to the People. Write it down.
No matter what comes, no matter what goes, if you're on a high, if you're in a low, if you
This is Powell to the People on the best talk in town.
Hey, welcome back for our third segment today. Listen, one of the things that, both of you just mentioned, Greg and Cathy, that is so powerful in a child's life or a young person's life is when you're told you have a capability of doing something, and an adult does that for you, like your coach, talking about, okay, you want to be an Olympic champion, here's what it's going to take, and encouraging you. And Greg, you talked about one note, but you built off the one note. And I think about kids that we work with today, that many of them come from homes where they're not told anything positive. And Cathy, you've worked with Girl Scouts. We're going to come back to some Olympic things because I've got an article you've written that I think is really valuable for parents. But talk a little bit about the Girl Scouts and what you've done there. I know you've retired and handed that off, but Girl Scouts of Central California. South. And, you and I have worked with a couple of things on that over the years because I just love what happens with, I have one daughter, Katie. She's very capable, does all kinds of really good things. So I had an affinity for helping young ladies out and things. And my wife is very talented as well. But tell me a little bit about your experience with the Girl Scouts, because you had done all kinds of things worldwide. You'd been involved in all kinds of things, and then you focused in on our Girl Scouts right here and brought this amazing professionalism to them.
Well, the interesting thing was that I was living in Delaware and decided that I wanted to come back to California. You can't take California out of a California girl.
Boy, isn't that the truth?
So I came back and for the interview, and I went to Target, and I couldn't believe how nice all the people were in Fresno. Now, I'm a California girl, but hadn't spent any time in Fresno. And I thought, this place is a really nice place.
I love it.
And my sister came down. We were talking about it. I went through the interview. I loved the interview. They were prepared. They were asking questions that I felt would be promoting what I wanted to do with the Girl Scouts.
Sure.
So I told my sister, well, if they don't hire me, I'm moving here anyway. So
now there's a Chamber of Commerce thing right there,
Well, I loved my experience just being here for that couple of days. When I got hired, I was hired to merge. And that means taking the council from Bakersfield and the council from Fresno and putting them all together to make a super council.
Yes.
And it was a very big challenge with the personalities and people not wanting to make a whole lot of change.
Absolutely.
And people giving up things that they were going to have to give up. And I didn't realize how big of a job that was going to be. So I spent a lot of time on my knees praying that I would have the charisma to pull people in, to help them to find what their niche would be, and that we would be able to have everybody set in what would make this council really great.
Right.
And one of the things I learned from Peter was surround yourself with great people.
Smart.
And especially if you're weak in any of the areas, find the smartest person in that area and lasso him.
Yeah, I love it.
So I began looking at how that would happen. And I had to, unfortunately, release a lot of people because of budgetary constraints. That means you rely on your volunteers. And so working with volunteers and getting them on board. But there comes a time that was really hard for me, and that was to say, you're going to get on this boat or you're not.
Right.
And I realized that some would take the trip across the Atlantic and want to get off 10 miles out from shore and then all the way. So there would be a lot of change. So change became my best friend. And I was so fortunate to be able to find wonderful staff that were really willing to get on that boat and go with me.
Yeah, I love it. You know, it's one of the hard lessons of leadership is being able to move people out who shouldn't be on the boat.
And help direct them to other things that they
in a
would
healthy
be.
way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I worked really hard to do that. And I think was successful in that. And looking at what did these kids need?
Yeah.
They really need to have some form of a goal to be looking at that would carry them through the rest of their lives. And one of those was looking at the already in place gold awards that were not being utilized here in this valley, where kids learn to do community service, to work hard, to be the leader.
Right.
And how was that going to build up from a little girl into a graduating senior from high school, and then be able to promote scholarships for these girls and to help them fulfill the dreams that they had? One of the things I love the most are the little girls who come up and tell you all about the wonderful things that they are doing in their troop, and showing you all their patches and just being so pleased and being able to introduce themselves to people, being able to get those good grades that are going to help them move on. And sometimes that's teaching the parents along with the whole story.
No doubt.
Then having the older girls come up to the end, having done their gold award, and receiving a scholarship to the Colorado School of Mines, to Fresno State to become teachers. And now that group has moved on, and one of the scholarships that we created, thanks to Marvin and Tish Myers, is an agricultural scholarship. And they had the opportunity to be introduced to Miss Katie, who was one of our outstanding Gold Award Girl Scouts, who spoke Marvin's language just perfectly. In fact, they got together and she was able to work on his tractor and put it back together.
Wow.
And as a result, Katie helped develop that scholarship for agriculture, and it's grown wonderfully well.
That's amazing.
And she's teaching now, has her first teaching job in Course Gold and loving it. And she's teaching agriculture, and she's helping the girls behind her. Taylor's now working out, student teaching out there, and she's going to teach agriculture. We've got to keep agriculture education going in our community.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, Marvin and Tish Myers are remarkable people. We've lost Marvin here recently, and he just stepped out beyond himself a lot and contributed to the community. But, you know, I was thinking about something you had said, that you came to Fresno when you interviewed for the job. What year was that?
That was in 2008.
You know, what's funny is because you and Greg are such engaging people, I feel like I've known you forever. You know, I don't go back just 14 years, you know, and you became such a part of the fabric of the community. It was really obvious and you're coming into that position, and obviously you were at Rotary, and we did a lot of things there. But it's interesting how you became such a big part of what took place with the Girl Scouts, but not only just with the Girl Scouts, but the entire community. And you changed the fundraising model for them as well, which is pretty remarkable because they were going through some very tough challenges. Good people wanting to do good things, but they didn't have that sense that you did of connecting with people in the community in such a way that you could get some dollars flowing for them. That was really, really a unique deal. So I feel like I've known you forever, and I've known you for 14 years. So,
That's a long time.
It is a long time. It is a long time. And I was thinking about, a lot of our kids now, they really do fight for those patches and stuff like that. And they understand we have so many kids today that don't have goals, don't have things they're trying to reach. And I was once told that you can never get someplace if you don't have a map to get there. And boy, patches are a map for a lot of our Girl Scouts. And, and I've worked with the Boy Scouts as well. Kids need something to belong to. They need something to aspire to. And the Girl Scouts just changed in the Fresno, Bakersfield region as a result of what you did. And it was pretty remarkable. So,
thank you.
Yeah, very, very amazing to see. And I was county superintendent at the time. So, you came in 2008. I was there in 2006, got elected to that office. And so the timing was really right for everything to work together during that time. So that was pretty unique. We've got just a quick minute here, but Greg, back to music. When did you guys meet?
Well, where else but in church.
Okay, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I had moved to Huntington Beach. My mother said, I want you to go to church with me. I said, why?
Oh,
And she said, we're going to have a special speaker today.
okay.
They're going to give their temple talk. Okay. All right. So we go. And down the aisle comes this blonde-haired woman, and I think, I know who that is. Why would I know that? Well, in 1964 in Buffalo, they transmitted the Olympics for the first time via TV,
Okay.
black and white at 2 a.m., and I learned about the California Water Babies, and Cathy was part of that group.
Wow. Wow.
And that's how we met.
I love it. What year was that?
What year was that?
Let's see. Wait, I got to go back here. That would have been in 78, 77,
78. Wow.
You know, that's about right, because I came out to California right after the blizz of 77 in Buffalo.
Okay.
And
There's certain things that can get you to California.
There you go.
One's an Olympic swimmer,
Right.
and the other's a blizzard. So,
Yeah, you bet.
But I loved his mother before I loved him.
oh, I love that too.
She was
Same
my-
with me.
She was my kid's Sunday school teacher,
Is that right?
and loved that
Wow.
woman.
Wow, that's great. Well, listen, folks, we're going to continue with Powell To The People, where civility is always in style. And amazing how fast these hours go, but you're enjoying a great time with Greg Panten and with Cathy Ferguson, Olympic champion. We're going to talk more when we get back. See you in a minute.
You're listening to Powell To The People. Write it down.
God, 14 years.
Wild. Yeah,
Where is it gone, Larry? So fast.
it has. So, folks, we'll have for Facebook, we'll have 10-minute segment left. We just going through this so fast.
On the best talk in town.
Hey, welcome back to Powell To The People, where civility is always in style. And, it's amazing how fast this time goes. And we're with Greg Panten and with Cathy Ferguson. And, Greg, you were talking about meeting Cathy. Did you meet her at church that first day you were there?
That was the absolute first time.
Okay.
And afterwards, after they talk, they meet and greet you at the door. And I was the last person out. And
Was that strategic?
Looking back on it, I'm thinking,
Might have been.
probably was,
Yeah.
but I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
And I said, I thought you were talking to me.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
And she said, what are you doing tonight? Now, Cathy was married.
Yeah.
I think you had 2 kids at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I don't have any plans. She said, why don't you come over and meet my family and we'll have some popcorn and talk.
Yeah.
Well, popcorn and talk led to about 1 a.m. And one thing led to another. And I knew all the people on her swim team practically.
Okay.
Because I had followed the Olympics.
Yeah.
One of my faves.
Oh, yeah.
And then, you know, along of that type of thing, she was in the church choir. Well, she said, why don't you join the church choir?
Music rang out right there.
And then I joined the church choir. And eventually down the line, I was the director of the church choir.
Yeah.
But that was years later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. What a great story. That's really cool.
You know, it is. You know,
Yeah.
what does God have in his plan for you? And there it is.
Yeah.
It's right in front of you. You don't see it until it's done and you get to
Yeah.
look at it.
We call it 20/20 hindsight
there you
from
go.
the Lord.
Yeah.
So,
So true.
yeah, really good. Well, Cathy, you wrote an article called 5 Warnings from an Olympic Gold Medalist and Mom. And I read the article, and I read it at the time, and that was 2018 when you wrote that, I believe. But the whole idea behind it was, you know, we've got so many crazy things going on right now, and some coaches get a bad name, deservedly so. Most of them don't. Most of them do the right thing by the athletes that they work with. But you just talked about some warning signs and stuff like that. But I was just wondering, tell us a little bit about your fierce protection of girls and what you're doing right now to help young women become successful. I know you've got a scholarship program, some things like that taking place.
Yes, we do have a scholarship program through Girl Scouts, but I belong to a women's organization called PEO, and its major focus is on helping girls in education. It's a philanthropic educational organization. And I happen to do the scholarships for my chapter, QJ. And if anybody's interested, I'm interested in talking to young ladies who have a GPA of about 3.5 and are going on to school.
Okay.
Whether it be community college, whether it be a 4-year school. They need to contact me when they're juniors.
Okay.
And it goes all the way up to doctoral programs. The
Wow.
PEO is international, all over the world.
So masters and doctors, doctor program.
In fact, I have a young lady at Bowling Green in music as a flautist who graduated from FPU here.
Wow.
So we have California scholarships as well as the international scholarships. The international ones take a little bit longer to do, but last year the organization gave out to 80 women $20,000 apiece. So there is good funding out there, which you don't find much of for a doctoral program.
Yeah, very tough.
So
very tough. Yeah.
Lots of different opportunities, and they can reach me at my email at Cathy, Cathy, Jean, Jean, 1964 at gmail.com.
Okay, that's good. We'll get that posted. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm interested in working with those young ladies. But getting back to the other part of protection, one of the greatest classes I ever took was self-defense. And one of the greatest things I learned when I took it and then taught it was the greatest defense is awareness.
Yes.
And to understand that you need to find people that you believe are good people and can mentor, just like your wife mentored so many of those young ladies and went through a lot of the traumas, I'm sure, with each one of them.
Sure.
There needs to be more people that are available to young women to guard against the things that can happen, because things sound good. and the old
A
thing
lot of
about,
allure. Yes.
and grooming.
Yes.
I was told by a FBI person here in Fresno that trafficking is one of the greatest crimes in Fresno, and who would have ever thought that? I wouldn't have ever thought that. And so it's very important that we really keep our feelers out.
Right.
And I say a prayer every single night, and I want you to say it now every single night, and the world to say it every single night. Dear God, watch out for our children who fall prey to the hands of adults that are not in their best interest. And I think we need to really work on that and pray about that.
Yeah.
We pray about a lot of things, illnesses, what have you. But God loves those little children, and he tells us to come to him as little children.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we need to protect each other like we protect them.
You know, you talked about one thing in particular I read about needing some kind of detraining after going through all of the work to become an Olympic athlete, where the focus is so zeroed in, laser focused. And then how do you get back into the world, you know, after all of the accolades and all of the hard work and everything? What is life like? So tell a little more about that detraining. I think the Germans had it. You had mentioned something about that.
A lot of European countries do, because what they do is they take their athletes and then move them into either coaching or training positions or leadership positions, and they foster that bridge between their athletic competition and their, quote, fame, to not having the fame. It's one moment in time, just like Peter said.
Yes.
So you better have something to fall back on.
Yep.
And I was very fortunate. I taught swimming with my mom. And then I went on to, Greg and I put a program together and sold it to the American Red Cross for infant preschool water awareness program.
Yeah.
And it went for over 8-10 years in the water safety classes. Well, you figure that 990,000 people took water safety instruction from the American Red Cross per year.
Wow.
And if each one of them taught 10 kids to swim, that's 10 lives that you are saving. And you multiply that over that 10-year span. And it all happened because of my mom and another lady named Penny, who taught me to swim.
Amazing.
So it just goes to show you what one penny can do.
Oh, that is really amazing. I love that. Well, folks, it's hard to believe we've been through an hour already. But Cathy, congratulations on the Olympic champion. But, you know, you've parlayed that into something really special to deal with young girls, to help them out, to do some things that are pretty unique in life. And Greg, the music continues. Love what you do, and thanks for helping me with my voice a little bit as well. It's hard to believe we're at the end of another segment of Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. You can catch us on Spotify. You can also catch us at KXEX, 1550 AM, Saturdays at 4, Sundays at 6. Look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye-bye. Thank you, Facebook. Appreciate you. Thanks for